All right, gather around, folks. We hope you enjoyed that last room on Moses and the issues of leading and his leadership track. We are now entering the next room that focuses a little differently. The rooms that we have been to so far have, certainly they've all had themes, and this one is no different. The themes have been represented in those other rooms primarily by an individual who's been commended, and that person and his or her example has been what we've been studying and depicting in our rooms. This one's a little different. We do have a person, but we also have the entire nation of Israel. So we have just a little bit of a different feel to this room, as you can notice in the pictures. You notice in the corners of the room, dioramas. You know, this is bringing you back to old-time museums and maybe even younger age school scenarios. We'll touch on all those in a little bit. But first, as we do in every room, we have an inscription. This one is out of Hebrews 11, verses 30 and 31. Could one of you with good eyesight read the inscription that's on the east wall here? Show me who you are, just so we're prepared. Okay. The free beverage guy strikes again. Go ahead, sir.
By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace.
Okay, thank you. So this is the next in chronological order. Hopefully you've been able to realize that our rooms are laid out in chronological order. We're not touching every event, but touching a good many. So we've left Moses. We are now into the area of the Israelites finally entering the Promised Land. And they're entering under new leadership. First off, before we get to that leadership transition, let me ask if you recall, there were two significant, I'm going to call them barriers or obstacles in the way of Israel and conquering the land of Canaan. At this point in time, Moses has transitioned to another leader. They are now about to do this thing, enter and take the promised land that God has provided for them for over 40 years. Two things kind of stand in the way of them accomplishing that goal. Do you recall which either of those two? Complaining, okay. Yeah, that kind of don't lose that, unfortunately. That's a barrier that remains for the duration. Two specific things I'm thinking about. It's a vague question, I know, just...
Before they sent the 12?
So this is after the 12, yeah. This is, now that the 12 came and they said, there's a wonderful land. 10 said, we're too scared. So they wandered 40 years. Now they're back again, and they have, like I said, primarily two things in the way of them really getting and owning, if you will, the Promised Land. All right, so my question's not really clear enough. Yes, fear. Yes, complaining. So I was thinking like more of structure. So one, you have the Jordan River. Okay. They're on the other side of the river, so they got to cross this body of water to get to the Promised Land. And then second, once they do that, if they do that, we know they do, but storyline's sake, if they do, the first thing they encounter is another barrier. What is that second barrier?
Walls, Jericho.
Jericho, the walls of Jericho, yes. Big fortified city. So once you get past this geological issue with this river in the way, now you encounter what is basically kind of an outpost of the Canaan. This is like the major population barrier to folks just coming and doing whatever they may want to do in Canaan. So these are the two issues that the Israelites face at this point in time, and the story that we're going to be walking through covers and touches on both of those. So first off, if you take a look at not the inscription, but the painting next to the inscription, the painting is titled Passing the Baton, and it shows a man, as you can see closely, if you look, he's being illuminated by something off frame. So let's go take a look at that. We'll go to the book of Joshua, if you would. Chapter 1. So Joshua is after the Torah. So you got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua. So go ahead and find that. Chapter 1. And I could have another person to read a few verses from Joshua chapter 1. Can you indicate who you are, Mr. and Ms. Reader? Very good, thank you. Tessie back there. Give us a second to catch up with you, Tessie. You're just fast. Joshua chapter 1, if you could read verses 1 through 5, and then skip and do 6 through 9.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not skipping. This is the whole same thing. I'm not sure why I broke it up as I did. 1 through 9 is that's what I'm
Okay.
asking you to do. Thank you.
Okay, well, all right.
I don't know what I'm asking you to skip.
After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I'm about to give to them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you.
All right, so actually pause. I broke that up because I wanted to pause even though it's a
Okay.
consecutive reading. So excellent reading, Tessie. I'll have you finish if you don't mind. So Mr. Mike, if you can stay there. So this is the proclamation to the new leader. Recall that Moses, despite his wonderful leadership and despite his faithfulness, there was an episode where he took glory on himself instead of letting God be glorified, and as a result, God said, you will see the promised land, but you will not enter. You will not lead the people in. So Moses went to the mountaintop and had this last experience with God. He never came down. God came down. God came down and knocked on Joshua's tent door and said, hey, Josh, come out. So he's now transitioning leadership over this people from Moses to Joshua. This is the commission. You're the guy. You're going to enter the promised land. Then he gives him these additional words of encouragement and guidance. If you could resume through verse 9, please.
Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give to them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate it on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.
All right, thank you. Well done, reader. Okay, so what phrase did we hear a couple times in that last section? Strong and courageous. That's like a redundancy. Why is God giving Joshua this instruction or guidance, not only once, not only twice, but by my count, 3 times? Why be strong and courageous? Emphasize so much here at this moment. Any thoughts?
He knew he was going to run into trouble.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there were the barriers that we just talked about a moment ago, and more. So yes, there is the need for courage to the extent of one entering a land that is foreign to them and being tasked to conquer it, to own it. What else? Other thoughts?
Probably needed reinforcement after Moses died.
Say that one more time.
After Moses was no longer there, he wanted to affirm that he would be communicating with Joshua.
Okay, very good. I like that. And your name? Stephen. I like that, Stephen. Where God is now, he is both commissioning Joshua and affirming Joshua. You are my guy. I am trusting this to you. I'm with you. That was the last part that Tessie read before I had her stop. I will not leave you or forsake you. And as a result, you have every reason to be strong and courageous. Plus, you have the need to be strong and courageous. Other thoughts? Why strong and courageous? What else might that be addressing? Sir, Chris.
Strong, as in no compromise.
Got it.
Courageous. Don't stop till I tell you.
Okay, good.
Keep going.
Good. Okay, yeah, excellent. Some nuances to both words. Certainly both of those applicable to the story as we know it. Hopefully we know it. This is the beginning of a story that encompasses the entirety of the book of Joshua. Another thought that I had was not only be strong and courageous as it pertains to what lies ahead, but also be strong and courageous as it pertains to the folks following you. I mean, these are stiff-necked people, and God said as much to them, and they just got finished walking around 40 years because they were waffling in their faith. They were not strong and courageous. 40 years ago, when 2 of the spies said, God will give it to us, I don't care that they're giants and the cities are fortified like Jericho, it doesn't matter. God said it's ours, let's do it. And their knees trembled, and they decided, let's maybe go back to Egypt. They treated us not so bad. So Joshua's, I think, his burden is being strong and courageous and being unrelenting to pursue God's the assignment, the barriers that he's going to face, both geological and personal, in terms of humanity and structures in his way, but also be strong and courageous because you're going to have a challenge with this, these million some odd people behind you. Moses, lived it for more than 40 years. You're the next up. I think the issue is kind of both the rearview mirror as well as the front windshield. Were you going to say
At the
something?
end of that chapter, even the people tell him to be strong and courageous. And so he might have been kind of a wimpy guy.
He was one of the 12 spies, but yeah, it sounds like he needs a little shot in the arm. Joshua was one of the 12. He was one of the 2 of the 12 that said, let's do it. So God preserved him and preserved Caleb, and Caleb, got a special commendation, if you will. But, whether it's that he had a reputation for needing a little shot in the arm, or God saw that this was a daunting task and wanted to give him, at the beginning before step 1. So he's being told to be strong and courageous. Yes, ma'am.
I was kind of thinking
Leslie.
the opposite, because
Please.
I feel like he had already shown himself strong and courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was one of the ones that wanted to go. And God usually, if something's said 3 times, it's, to show greater emphasis. And I think he was affirming him, continue on, you're strong and courageous, you're going to need that. And he just kept telling him, kind of homing in on that.
Good.
The strength that he'd already shown already.
Excellent. Agree. Yes?
What I'm thinking is, when God said, be strong and courageous, it's not just to conquer the promised land. I think to lead the people too. Because they lost, their leaders. Probably, they might rely on their leaders as well. So when he becomes a new leader, probably, he might have some challenging to lead.
People stayed.
When he put it a little, more bluntly than Mr. Stoney did, but yes. So, and I had that thought as well. In addition to, being strong and contending with the people behind, I think what you're addressing is another subset, which I think goes with Leslie's point. For the people themselves to be a strong and courageous nation, this people, as you rightly say, identify and follow leaders. They followed Moses, and now he's the new guy. And so I think also the commendation and the direction to be strong and courageous is not just for Joshua in dealing with what lies ahead, not just for Joshua in dealing with the people, but in Joshua setting an example for the people so that when the nation hits these barriers, they can look to a leader, they can see someone who is strong and courageous, who exudes confidence in God and God's presence, and hopefully they likewise will have a little more courage than they did 40 years ago when they got scared. I think all of these things and more, and we've touched on, I think, a lot of the facets of it. This is a significant passing of the baton, as this painting is attempting to illustrate. All right, so back to the story. Now we're going to skip forward from Joshua 1 to Joshua 6, if you would go there, please. What happened in the first 5 verses is that they did cross the first of those barriers, the Jordan River, did it similarly to how God brought the people across the Red Sea. Body of water that suddenly had a dry path right smack in the middle, and 1 million people can walk right through, obviously a God thing, and 12 stones are grabbed from the middle of that river basin to erect a monument on the other side, on the Canaan side of the river, to commemorate that God delivered his people. So now they come to the second of the barriers. Can somebody read Joshua chapter 6, verse 1? It's a one verse assignment. It's like a freebie, an easy one. Somebody, all right, hang on a second. Gary. Go ahead, sir.
Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because the Israelites, no one went out and no one came in.
All right, so pause right there. So we hear about the city of Jericho, and there was something specific that they did. Yours read interesting. Yours said the gates were barred. Mine said that Jericho was strongly fortified. Both of them had a similar explanation for why. What was the reason why the gates were barred? Gary, what you just read?
They didn't want anybody to come in.
Yeah, well, specifically who? The Israelites, yeah, because they were afraid, they didn't want anybody to come in, yeah, stay away. But particularly it was the Israelites. So this people that live in this city, this fortified city, this daunting city, have a fear of the Israelites. And as a result, they either bar their gates, as your rendition or your dialect has. Again, mine says strongly fortified. Our diorama, the first of the two, and we're going to get to it a little more in depth later, but I know it's kind of hard for you to see because it's a little smaller and it's far away, but the diorama is depicting not only Jericho in its natural structure, a thick walled city, but you can also see some additional fortifications that were done there. Certainly the gates were barred. You'll take a look and you'll see some additional mounds at the base of the walls. It's as though the people not only had the normal reasons for having a walled city, the normal concern about what lies beyond, but they took extra measures because, as this passage tells us, because of the fear of the Israelites. So why would they be afraid of the Israelites? Any thoughts on that?
What Rahab said?
All right, well, this is before Rahab's, well, okay, yes. What did Rahab say, since you raised that question? We're getting a little ahead, we're going to go there in a moment, but do say. No, do say.
Chapter 2,
Put you on the spot, didn't I?
verse 10.
Okay.
For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who are beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you, for the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath.
Excellent. Well done. And we're going to get to more of this story in a second. But yes, we'll use that as a springboard, and we're going to go to read a little bit more about this issue with Sihon and Og. But the short answer to my question is the reputation of the Israelites, and more importantly, the Israelite God has become known, and known specifically to the people of Jericho. And they're aware, how they're aware that, I guess they got scouts out there and they got security people, and they're seeing this mass of folks that were initially safely protected from Jericho by this body of water, and holy cow, now they're all here. I don't know how they got across the water, but now they're on our land, and they're but 5 miles away from Jericho, and we got to do something about this, because we are aware of such things as the death of Sihon and the death of Og. What are they talking about? They're talking about the book of Deuteronomy. So hold your finger in Joshua. Go back to your left to the book of Deuteronomy. Specifically, chapter 2. I'll do the reading just in the interest of time and to keep our cameraman from having to hustle around the room more than he needs to. But we're going to read Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 24 through 34. So to set the stage, Deuteronomy is essentially the end of the 40-year journey. Most of the book is focused on Moses giving the now surviving nation of Israel a history lesson. History lesson that includes, where they came from in terms of captivity, the Lord's deliverance, the Ten Commandments, a bunch of other things. Also within the book of Deuteronomy is, again, they're continuing to traverse toward the promised land. So the first couple of chapters is now, shortly before the time frame that we're looking at in the book of Joshua. The Israelites are now approaching, and they mean business. I will begin Deuteronomy chapter 2, beginning verse 24. The Lord also said, "Get up and move out and cross the Arnon Valley. See, I have handed Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land over to you. Begin to take possession of it, engage him in battle. Today I will put the fear and dread of you on the peoples everywhere under heaven." So God's basically saying, this is going to be big stuff. And not only going to do damage to these people, but this is going to become known, and just wait and see. They will hear the report about you, tremble, and be in anguish because of you. All right, so we're seeing what Rahab is talking about. Verse 26, so I sent messengers with an offer of peace to Sihon, king of Heshbon, from the wilderness of Kedeth, saying, let us travel through your land. We will keep strictly to the highway. We will not turn to the right or left. You can sell us food in exchange for silver, so we may eat, and give us water for silver, so we may drink. Only let us travel through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who live in Seir did for us, and the Moabites who live in Ar, until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord our God is giving us. All right, so this is an offer. This is basically, hey, this doesn't have to be a bloodbath. We're going to walk on your road. Just don't fuss about it. It's simple. We're not going to stray. You're not going to pillage your villages. We're not going to wipe out your farmlands. Just, we'll pay for water. We'll pay for food. Just let us go. But Sihon, the king of Heshbon, would not let us travel through this land, for the Lord your God made his spirit stubborn and his heart obstinate in order to hand him over to you as has now taken place. Then the Lord said to me, see, I have begun to give Sihon and his land to you. Begin to take possession of it. So Sihon and his whole army came out against us for the battle at Jahaz. The Lord our God handed him over to us, and we defeated him, his sons, and his whole army. At that time we captured all of his cities and completely destroyed the people of every city, including the women and children. We left no survivors. Sounds harsh, but that's the story. All right, fast forward, chapter 3, verse 1. They're still traveling. Verse 1. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan. And Og, king of Bashan, with his whole army came out against us for battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have handed him over to you, along with his whole army and his land. Do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So the Lord our God also handed over Og, king of Bashan, and his whole army to us. We struck him until there was no survivor left. We captured all his cities at the time. There wasn't a city that we didn't take from them. 60 cities, the entire region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a large number of rural villages. We completely destroyed them, as we had done to Sihon, king of Heshbon, destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But we took all the livestock and the spoil from the cities as plunder for ourselves. All right, so we see a lot in here that gives reason for the Jerichoites, the residents of Jericho, to be concerned, give reason for what Rahab said. We see that last conquest, there was a specific mention of the fact that they conquered all the cities that were fortified with high walls. So I think this is part of what motivates Jericho to try to bolster their defenses. They not only heard that Israel's coming, and there's a lot of them, they not only heard that Israel's God is he's a serious dude, and he does not let things get in the way, and such things including kings and vast armies, including fortified cities. So the people of Jericho have reason to be afraid, as Rahab accurately spoke. Nonetheless, Jericho is still an obstacle in their path, and so after Israel crosses the Jordan River, the decision is made to send 2 spies to scout out Jericho, and we see that some of that episode depicted in our second painting to the right, to your right, my left, I should say. This one is called, what's it called? Darn it, I have the name here somewhere. Where is that? Shoot, I'll get back to it. It's somewhere here, and I'm just escaping my notes as a still neophyte docent here. Darn it. Fear of Israel. Fear of Israel is what this one is called. Okay, so let's go back to the story. Joshua chapter 2, which is where Chris brought us. We're going to be picking up a little bit before and a little bit after that passage. Can I get a reader for verses 1 through 7? Joshua chapter 2. If you could identify who you are so that we know. All right. Looks like. Thank you, Leslie. Go ahead.
And Joshua, the son of Nun, sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, go view the land, especially Jericho. And they went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told to the king of Jericho, behold, men of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land. Then the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. And she said, true, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And when the gate was about to be closed at dark, the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hid them with the stalks of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to Jordan as far as the fords, and the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out.
All right, thank you, Leslie. So the second painting relates to this topic, and it's called Virtuous Lies, with a question mark. And this is a whole ethical issue that we're really not going to discuss now because we have more in this room and we only have another 30 minutes or so to cover it, and we're giving you time to break. But this is a famous story, somewhat famous at least, where Rahab, as you can see in the picture, she is pointing in the distance, talking to what appear to be officials of some sort from her town, saying, yeah, these guys came and they went that way. Really, they're upstairs above, and you can kind of see it's subtle, but you can see kind of bulging on the top of her roof. It's a flat roof, but there's something that's keeping it from not being perfectly flat, and it is two Israelite spies. So the Israelites come, they explore Jericho, because, again, Joshua is tasked to go and conquer this land, and he, through God's great divine involvement, passed through the River Jordan. The next major obstacle is the city of Jericho. I would say this is not an act of self-reliance or a lack of faith. This is Joshua being a good steward of this opportunity and the resources he has to look at and assess Jericho so that he and God, can be on the same page as to what happens next. How do we deal with this particular city? So I find it interesting, and I don't really have an answer for why these two spies found their way to, some of the dialects will say a prostitute, some will say a harlot, but they encountered Rahab, and she's the one who was their aide. And she was their aide, as you saw. What did she do specifically to aid these guys? She hit them. I mean, they were, shortly after, word spread pretty quickly, apparently, in Jericho. I don't know that the Israelites just look way out of place or whatever. All of a sudden, you got two guys that we don't recognize, and rumor has it they're in Rahab's house, and, like minutes later, all of a sudden, people are showing up saying, where are these two guys? So Rahab does exactly what you said, Stephen, I think you said, right, Stephen? Okay. Directly what Stephen says, she hides these guys. She preserves their life and tells the others, they're left. So, again, the whole ethical debate about, was this God's plan? Did God commission Rahab to lie? That's an ethical debate for another day. But this is the method that she chooses to preserve Israel. Why does she do this? We heard a little bit about it earlier. In fact, you're going to be our reader because we're going to cover the verse you read. Mr. Microphone, if you can go over to Chris, he's going to read verses 8 through 11 of Joshua chapter 2. So Rahab says this, and the officials, beat feet and scurry to try to catch these guys that apparently are trekking toward the wilderness, but really they're not. Resume reading verse 8 through 11, if you would, please.
Very good. Before the men lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath.
All right, thank you, sir. So again, we heard much of that a few minutes ago, but one of the parts that he didn't read initially, because it was earlier than the part he cited, was the fact that there was an awareness, at least in this one lady, that the Lord your God has given you our land. She has been enlightened to that inevitable truth. And that explains why she hid the Israelite spies. And we'll see a little bit more about their interaction in a second. So, and I lost track of a couple points I wanted to make. The focus of this room, the theme of this room is obey orders. Again, all of the rooms deal with how faith that is action is demonstrated. And we've seen lead, we've seen sacrifice willingly, we've seen the other things, do the unprecedented, rely on the impossible. Here we have obey orders. The first order was given to Joshua, be strong and courageous. Said 3 times, and we've discussed, perhaps the reasons, the multifaceted reasons for that order. Second order is going to be the one that these gentlemen give to Rahab in response to her kindness. Can I get another reader to read verses 17 through 21 of this same chapter? Sorry, Mark, you're going to keep you fit this morning. Somebody over there. Will one of you all be a reader for this next passage? Mark, just walk to that table, and we're going to force somebody over there to volunteer. There we go. You've been voluntold. Thank you.
17 through 21.
Yes, please. Thank you.
The men said to her, "We will be guiltless with respect to this oath of yours that you have made us."
You know what? I'm sorry. Sir, your name is Chris, right?
Yes.
So before this, she basically, after the part that the other Chris read, she says, I know that you guys are going to take the city, please save me, essentially. Okay, now go ahead.
I'm going to start over.
Please.
The men said to her, "We will be guiltless with respect to this oath of yours that you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall tie this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. And you shall gather into your house your father and mother, your brothers, and all your father's household. Then, if anyone goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be guiltless. But if a hand is laid on anyone who is with you in this house, his blood shall be on our head. But if you tell of this business of ours, then we shall be guiltless with respect to your oath that you have made us swear." And he said, "According to your words, so be it." And she said, "According to your words, so be it." Then she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chris. So second order that we're going to be focusing on, part of the commendation in the inscription, was about Rahab, and this was the order that she was given through the Israelites. God used them to communicate to her, if you want to be spared, here's what you need to do. There's, specific things to do. Put this cord in your window. So I'm envisioning, in our diorama here, both of them depict that Rahab's house is built into the walls of the city, kind of like condos, townhomes, something like that. And so her window is like exterior and the wall is below, and this is a window she can look out and see the wilderness. That's where she points to and says, these guys have fled, they're that way. So there's this window, and she's to tie this cord to identify her residence. And she's also given another order. If you want to, whoever you want to be spared of your family, they got to be in your house. Don't let them leave. Bring them here. So second order, now given to a non-Hebrew, a Gentile or a pagan, you would call her, an order of the Lord, and we'll see what happens with her. So we get to the fourth painting on this wall. Actually, it's over here. Fourth painting on this wall is called Fled in Red, and we see the Israelite spies are running off in the distance, and you can see this cord kind of blowing in the wind out this lady's window. Now we get to, I think, the most bizarre of the orders that are being called out in this room. And they pertain to what the Israelites did from a military standpoint to conquer this daunting city of Jericho. Yes, the city is fearful, but it's still a fortified city. It's still an armed city, and now it's even more fortified. So it's not, it's not ripe for the picking. What do the Israelites do? Let's go back to Joshua chapter 6. And we're going to stay here for the duration, I promise. Joshua chapter 6. Can I get somebody to read verses 1 through 5? 1 through 5, chapter 6, book of Joshua. A new person. Yes, Tiffany. Thank you, ma'am.
Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast and with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat. And the people shall go up, everyone straight before him."
Thank you. All right, so what's the military plan to conquer this fortified city? Walk around, yeah, and be loud on the last time. I mean, what is this? This is crazy. So the diorama, the one that's titled before, depicts that. It was the one that we looked at casually that talked about the fortifications. But you see the little guys, tens of thousands of little people that are making this circular path around this fortified city. Why would God have this be the military plan to conquer Jericho? Let's just kind of chew on that for a bit. I think it's a very bizarre order. This is how you're going to, go ahead. God's glory. Excellent answer. Yes, Mark with the camera.
That was a God-sized task. I mean, that men doing that couldn't do it, but when the walls came tumbling down, it was obviously that God was behind it.
Excellent. Very good.
7 days that he built the earth.
All right, yeah, so the 7, there's some symbolism, I suspect, to choosing 7 days of doing this, and the last time you walk around 7 times. Very good. Other thoughts? Think about if you're in Jericho. Let's say you're in Jericho day 1, day 2, day 3 before I get there. Go ahead, you had a thought.
I was going to say obedience because it seems like something like if I was told to do that and that's going to save me, it doesn't seem like the traditional.
Clearly not.
Yeah, so it's showing obedience to have faith in God and just do this.
Yeah, you use traditional, I would say conventional. This is a very unconventional strategy. It's a big city, we're going to walk around. We're going to walk around once the first day, and then you're going to go back home. Hang out in your tents. Sun rises the next day, you're going to walk around. Go back to your tent. 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, 6th day. 7th day, you're going to do it a bunch more times, and you're going to scream at the end, and the city's yours. I mean, that just doesn't make the least bit of sense. If you're a military guy, if you're somebody that would think through and strategize, how do we conquer this city, I don't think you would draw up those plans. Unless you had the indication of trying to glorify God by doing something that only God can do, and this strategy makes it clear it's not man's doing. It's not might, it's not force, it's divine intervention. But I want to picture as well, let's think about you are now in the city of Jericho. Just what would this experience feel like, or how would you react to seeing this happening during the days it's happening? Yes, sir.
If I was in the city after about the 3rd day, I'm like, what are these people?
I think so.
I'm starting ignoring them at that point because it's like they're not doing anything. They're just walking around once a day.
Bunch of clowns. What are these people doing? Yeah. So it could have that, and there's not a right answer. It could have the effect of, after a while, you think, okay, they're all bark and no bite. It's a whole lot of nothing. Sir.
Well, I know in the VeggieTales version of this,
We got a scholar here. Yes.
Look down on them and they go, silly pico.
Hey, now that's a historical film.
Yes, it is.
They then throw purple slushy.
I saw that. Yes.
Yes.
At the people in mockery.
Historical document.
It is.
Funny.
Sir.
I've got a real story. Most of you know I'm in commercial real estate. On Beaver Street, there was a bank, and it's not in the nicest area.
Okay.
There was an African-American church that was looking at it with one of my young guys that just started with me. The first thing when he called me, he said, Gary, there's a homeless guy inside. What do I do? I said, well, just ask him to leave. So I called him back, and I said, how's it going? He said, I don't know what they're doing. He says, but they're walking around the building 7 times, making lots of noise at the walls of Jericho.
Cool. So the church was doing that as a way to
so that they could buy it. Yeah.
Own it, so to speak. That's cool. That's cool. So, yeah. So one, and again, there's not a right answer. We're not told. One potential response from the folks inside the wall is to be concerned, curious, and after a while, kind of scoff and think this is silly. Why are we afraid of these people?
Or have building effects, like
Yeah.
day after day, like when's it going to happen?
Yeah. When's the shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, that would be the other potential. Is the first thing that this is odd, curious. Then day 2, day 3, day 4.
especially the 7th day.
Oh yeah.
When they're doing it more than one time. And then all the ruckus.
Yeah, and in Canada, there probably are both reactions within the city. You probably got some folks like, Israelites ain't nothing, and you got some others like, oh my gosh, this is like terrorizing us because they're like playing with us, like a cat that's batting around a mouse before he pounces on it and eats it or whatever else. What's about to happen? I don't know. In any event, this is the directive that God gives to Joshua the one who is to be strong and courageous to communicate to his people who are also in need of strength and courage to conquer the land of Canaan. They have passed the first test by trusting that the waters of the river Jordan would part once their feet touched it. That was a little different than the Red Sea, where the land was already dry and then they could walk. This particular episode, 40 years later, they had to get their feet wet. Once they did that, waters parted. So they were strong and courageous in walking through the river Jordan. Now they're here at the fortified, more heavily fortified city of Jericho. And they're given this bizarre assignment that their strong and courageous leader has communicated to them and is leading them in. And they have the opportunity to obey these strange orders or not. Thankfully, I think we know the rest of the story, but I will pick up and read again just to spare you all. Let me find the opportune spots. All right, I'm just going to resume where we left off. Where did we leave off? We left off verse 6. All right, we're not going to pick up there. But they do it. So days 1, day 2, day 3, all the way through day 6, they just walk around one time quietly. Again, I think part of the eeriness of it is that they're quiet. The noise happens on day 7. What's that? Yeah, it's like, this is a cone of silence. You're going to go and just silently walk around. I mean, again, I'm picturing tens of thousands of people. We're told that the nation's about 1 million in size. I don't know that every single person in the nation, or if it's just the able-bodied men or whatnot. I don't know that the passage goes. But in any rate, I would say it's at least tens of thousands of men, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of men, women, children, the whole deal, quietly walking around your city. Like they're surveying it in broad daylight. We're assessing your weaknesses, and we're going to come back the next day and do the same thing. We're looking to see, if I'm Jericho, and I think I would tend to be more towards this is becoming increasingly terrifying mindset versus these guys are idiots, so we don't have anything to fear. So I'm thinking by day 6, they've like found some of the weak parts of our city, and they're strategizing how they're going to go and exploit those and penetrate the walls and come and do great damage to us. Anyway, so day 7, I want to get to the day 7 part. Which was on verse 15 of chapter 6. Early on the 7th day, they started at dawn and marched around the city 7 times in the same way. That was the only day they marched around the city 7 times. After the 7th time, the priest blew the trumpets, and Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. But the city and everything in it are set apart to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and everyone with her in the house will live, because she hid the men we sent. But keep yourselves from things set apart, or you will be set apart for destruction. If you take any of these things, you will be set apart. You will set apart the camp of Israel for destruction and bring disaster on it. For all the silver and gold, the articles of bronze and iron are dedicated to the Lord and must go into the Lord's sanctuary." So the people shouted, and the trumpets sounded. When they heard the blast of the trumpet, the people gave a great shout, and the walls collapsed. The people advanced into the city, each man straight ahead, and they captured the city. They completely destroyed everything in the city with the sword, every man and woman, both young and old, and every ox, sheep, and donkey. And I think that was also depicted in the historically accurate VeggieTales movie. Did I remember that correctly? Okay. The walls came down after they tooted the horn, and the silly pickle made them scream and yell. But there was one area as just depicted. So here's the after. This is the before diorama in that back corner. This is the after diorama in this back corner. And you can see the rubble that used to be the city of Jericho. But if you look closely, you'll see that there's a part of the wall that is not destroyed. Verse 22, Joshua said to the 2 men who had scouted the land, "Go to the prostitute's house and bring the woman out of there, and all who are with her, just as you promised her." So the young men who had scouted went in and brought out Rahab and her father, mother, brothers, and all who belonged to her. They brought out her whole family and settled them outside the camp of Israel. And then they laid waste to Jericho. All right. What else do we know about Rahab besides this particular episode where she was spared in the book of Joshua? Sir?
This isn't about Rahab.
Okay.
It's about this story
All right.
that hit me and bothered me.
Okay.
Having to do with our sermon series in that.
Yes.
They went 7 days without resting,
Ah, interesting.
especially on the seventh day.
The day of rest is the one that did all the work, so to
The one
speak.
when they did the most work.
Interesting. I agree. That's my answer. I'm not sure what sermon you're talking about, I guess back where you live, but that's good to know. And yeah, I can't answer that question either. But yes, fair point. Back to my question, though. What else do we know about Rahab? There's a somewhat obscure but really important fact that the Bible tells us about Rahab. She is. She's in the genealogy, and I didn't look. It's either in Luke or in Matthew. In fact, give me a second. I should have done that ahead of time. She is identified in the line of Jesus. You know, the human line of Jesus, I should say. Who did she marry? I don't remember. It's in Matthew? Okay, thank you. I knew it was one of the two. So we're talking Matthew chapter 1. Let's find Rahab in Matthew chapter 1. Salmon fathered Boaz by Rahab. This is verse 5, Matthew chapter 1. So this Rahab is the great-great-grandma of King David. How about that? Salmon. Okay. So Rahab did follow orders. So back to the whole theme of obeying orders. Joshua was committed to be bold and courageous. I think the storyline proves that he followed that order. Rahab was given the ability to be spared if she followed the orders and do this thing in her window and have her family there, and she did follow those orders. She obeyed those orders. Furthermore, the people of Israel, when they heard this plan to conquer Jericho, didn't scoff and say, what kind of crazy leader is this? Let's find someone else. They saw the strength and courage of Joshua. They apparently trusted in his leadership, that God was in that leadership. And they strongly and courageously did this most bizarre military game plan, and God showed himself. Clearly a God-accomplished task, because screaming doesn't normally collapse a very fortified city, doesn't put people in fear and all this stuff. So the point of this room and the emphasis on this inscription in this room, as we are in the Hebrews 11 Hall of Faith, and that faith is action, and that action often is going to be to obey orders. And sometimes those orders are going to be confounding, like I would say the orders to conquer Jericho. These people were people of faith, led by a leader of faith who, despite probably not understanding the orders or the wisdom of those orders, had enough faith to obey those orders. Rahab, who didn't even know God, had enough faith and fear of God to obey orders, to trust the foreign people would spare her life. Joshua was given the opportunity to lead, and he had the courage and the strength to do that because of the faith that he committed to the Lord, the faith that the Lord obviously saw in him both 40 years ago and then even more so in the 40 years of wandering, because Joshua became Moses' second-hand man, the lieutenant, if you will. So what we hope this room inspires in each of us, the visitors and the docents on staff, is that we're going to at times be given orders that are going to be daunting or going to be confounding or otherwise going to challenge our resilience to obey. And hopefully maybe thinking about this room and the folks who were depicted in it will have a little more strength and a little more courage to have a bold faith to obey such orders. Let me close this in prayer, and I'll give you your 10 minutes to walk around. God, thank you for this room. Thank you for these episodes that we read about, for how you used these stories to instill fear in the people of Jericho at the time, to instill awe in those same people and those who witnessed the collapse of Jericho, and hopefully, more importantly, instill awe in those of us right now in this room who are reading these passages and seeing how you can work through folks who are faithful enough to obey your orders. I pray that when they come to each of us, that we would do likewise, that we would not feel the need to understand completely or find comfort, that the orders will be challenging, yet they come from you, and when they do, we will be courageous enough to say, yes, Lord. Thank you for giving us those opportunities. Thank you for your word. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. All right, see you back here in how long, Gary?